So welcome to the Milford School Committee meeting of September 6th. We have a distinct pleasure this evening. We have the opportunity to honor the Milford High School softball champions from last year. They won their championship at the end of an undefeated season and undefeated tournament. A very, very impressive feat that a lot of sacrifice and hard work went into achieving, which every member of the committee here knows. We want to thank all of you for coming today, and we'd like to invite Coach Brian Mackey up to talk a little bit about the team, introduce the team, and talk about the championship run.
Sure.
Yeah, that would be great.
First of all, I'd like to thank the committee for having us here tonight and honoring the season that we had. It's a privilege for you guys to let us come here. We want to thank all of our family and friends, the school as a whole, and the community of Milford for supporting us this whole season. It was a special season, obviously an undefeated state championship, something that I told these girls the night we won that's going to bond us together forever. We're a group that can always look back at 2012 as a special moment, and that night and the way we won with a game-winning hit by Taylor LeBron scoring Caroline Fairbanks in the bottom of the 9th inning just made it that much more special, and something, again, like I said, we'll never forget with all the pictures and different things that we've collected over the past few months. It is something that we can take with us forever, as I told these girls that night as well. So thank you very much. The girls that we have with us tonight, I'll start all the way down the end. Sam Bonvino, Shannon Smith is next to her. Caroline Chaplin, Leah Murray, Giovanna Arcudi coming from her volleyball game, rushing down here, made it on time. Megan Brady, Caroline Fairbanks, Ali Pigostavo, Taylor LeBrun, Lauren Hanna, Lizzie Stallone, Kayla Barris, and Rachel Levine. And unfortunately, our seniors from last year have started college. Taylor Archer is at the University of Rhode Island. Lindsay Reed is at Endicott College, and Katie Griswold is at Westfield State. So we want to wish them, again, congratulations to them as well, and all the girls for all their efforts this year. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good job, everybody.
Good job.
Thanks a lot.
Nice job, ladies. Good job.
Thank you very much.
Nice job, Coach. Congratulations, ladies.
Thank you all so much for coming. It's a huge achievement, and we're also terribly proud of you. We really appreciate you taking your time to come in. Ryan said it was a privilege, or Coach Mackey said it was a privilege. It's actually our privilege that you would come in and stay before. So we really appreciate it, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
What's that? Mike, I'm telling you right now, I couldn't hit one of their pitches. There's no way.
Are you afraid of it?
Never happened. Never happened.
Promise you won't hit me.
Yeah. I come up with full body armor.
I know. I would too.
So as our state champions file out, we now have another distinct honor. We have the opportunity to welcome the candidates for the Senator Louis B. Pertinazi Foundation Outstanding Teacher of the Year. And the Senator has come in tonight to speak about not only his foundation and the award, but also about the teachers who were nominated for it and the teacher who ultimately did win that. Senator, if you
Mr. Chairman,
please join us.
thank you.
Just for those of you who are new to this, which isn't very many, I just want to say that those of us who were brought up in this town came to understand that we came from a blue-collar town. There were people who came here from other countries originally who really didn't want anything except the opportunity to work and to provide for a better life for their kids. They did that. They also learned immediately the importance of education in improving the lives of their kids. And so Milford has always been supportive of education. You can see it by the buildings that we have, but more importantly, in terms of education here in Milford, the most significant thing is the quality of the teachers. When I was in school, there were names that some of you probably may not have heard of, but to me, they were the people who shaped my life and the lives of people who went to school at the same time. Paul Raftery, to my mind, was the outstanding educator of all time. In addition, there were people like Margaret Pianka, Dr. Ryan, Miss Ford, Mr. Metcalf, so many over the years, the Davrins, so many names that all made the lives of families in town that much better because of what they did for their kids. When I went to Tufts, I felt as though I knew as much as anyone who came from a private school, or anyone who came from any other school. I never felt deprived in any way. My feeling has been that you have to recognize something that's really good, something that really works. You can't take it for granted. You've got to do something to show that you appreciate and respect what's done. So 15 years ago, when shortly after I left the Senate, we established a foundation. The foundation recognizes 3 areas that we try to do something to show our appreciation. One is education, another is culture, and another is citizenship. This is the educational portion of it. 15 years ago, we gave our first award. What we wanted to do was to show Milford teachers that we know what they're doing and we appreciate it. Many times, you know, you can do a great job, you can work, really know that you're doing a good job, but you'd like to have somebody say, I know what you're doing, and I really respect you for it. I really think you're doing a great job. So we started this award, and 15 years ago, we gave the first one. And we wanted to make it clear that this was not a Best Teacher Award. We're not saying in any way, this is the best teacher in the system. What we're saying is, we have so many outstanding teachers in our system that each year we're going to have the school councils, and as a matter of fact, it's a town-wide event. So we're going to have everybody in town, anyone who wants to nominate a teacher, anyone who knows a teacher that really does a great job and wants to place their name in nomination, we let them do that. The principals have been great in sending out the forms so that people can make their suggestions. Then it goes, in each case, to a school council, so that the school council then determines which of the nominees in their building will be the nominee for that year. So each year there are 7 people who are named for this. To my mind, those are the 7 winners. Those are the 7 people who have won the nomination in their group. We then, to show, you know, you all came from Milford, you all know that sometimes some of these things are kind of prearranged a little bit. So we went out of our way to make sure that there was no question, so that my foundation board, does not do the selection. They select people in the community, which also helps to make this a community-wide event. They select 7 people from the community, and those people come. Each one is given a package of all the information about each teacher. They review it for a couple of weeks. We then come into the superintendent's office, and I can't say enough about the kind of cooperation that we've received from all superintendents, but specifically from Bob Tremblay this time, and for the last few times, as a matter of fact. They then they review every single teacher. And so I really want to emphasize that for the teachers. We make certain that they discuss each teacher individually. They go over all of that for each teacher, then they come back and talk in terms of each of the teachers again. So it's given an absolute fair shot as far as anybody who's nominated. Then they give us that information. We do that in June. We ask them not to say anything or to let people know who has been nominated and who has been elected. This is the 15th year. No one has ever said that they knew in advance. So those people are really great, and we thank them. Remember now, that means that 15 years times 7, those are the numbers of people who have participated in this from the community, as well as the number of 7 teachers each year who are nominated. So it's something that we're very proud of. We have been giving the award at the first day when all of their peers are there, and we're happy that that's a very appropriate time to do it. But years ago, the school committee began inviting us to do it again, a repeat performance, if you will, at your meeting, so that people in the community can see, again, what their teachers are doing and what they're accomplishing and how proud we are of them. And again, this year, the superintendent and chairman of the school committee invited us back. We're happy to do it here again tonight. So with that said, you all understand what it is. I want you to meet, I don't think all 7 are here, but I want you to meet some of the outstanding teachers that you have in your system if you haven't already met them. I have well, why don't I do it this way? I have to figure out which school. Okay. From the Stacy School, the first nominee, the winning nominee is Jennifer Mulcahy. Congratulations. Stay right here. The nominee, the winning nominee from Brookside, Renee Julie. I seem to remember that. From Shining Star, Kathleen Segala. Congratulations. Kathleen Segala. And this name I know is a lot easier because I've seen it and read it many times. From Middle School East, Holly Davern. And this year's winner of the $1,000 award, and this token as well is from the Woodland School, Alex Ornesian.
I'd like to thank the committee and the Burton Ozzie Committee as well for this honor. I'd like to thank my mom and dad, my grandmother who's feeling better, Leah Valenti and Erica Murray who nominated me for the award this year. Most importantly, though, I'd like to thank the staff at Woodland, who are so collaborative and supportive, and just a great group of people to work with. So I couldn't be here without them, and they're great. So thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Again, I want to thank all of you for inviting us and giving us the opportunity to show off to you, your teachers. We'll see you next year.
Thank you. Yeah, the next item on our agenda is to release the previously approved executive session minutes of May 10th, May 24th, June 6th, and June 21st. No vote is required. We've already voted on those minutes. We did not receive the July 19th minutes, but we do have, we will have those for vote on the next agenda. So the next item on our agenda are announcements, correspondence, and distributions. Does any member have any announcements or correspondence?
Just have a couple items.
Yeah, please go.
I just wanted to publicly acknowledge and recognize our athletic trainer and Rich Piergustavo for, if you recall, they had a concussion forum that was hosted on August 16th. That was brought up. There was some subject of conversation last school year. I had an excellent presentation that happened on the 16th about awareness of concussions, and it was a great training for all the student athletes that were in attendance. I wanted to just acknowledge that to the public and to this committee as a follow-up that we've done that work. And also, I don't want to steal your thunder if you have an opening of school report, but I wanted to just talk about the smooth opening of school despite the weather. And it happened to rain on the first day of kindergarten and preschool, too. So consistent with the first day for grades 1 through 12, we had a very smooth start to the school year. And the schools looked great. The staff and kids were all energized and ready to be back. And for those members who had the chance to tour, I hope you saw the same things that I saw. For members who didn't, at any point, of course, if you want to take a walk with me, I'd be happy to give you a personal tour and go through the schools as well. So just a quick comment on that. Strong opening to the school year.
And I did want to comment on the opening of the school year, but before I did that, because those were all very positive, and it was a very good day on our first day. There was actually something that happened over the course of the first week that I found, believe it or not, rather upsetting. So upsetting, as a matter of fact, that I wanted to bring it up at the meeting today. 3 times last week, while I was driving my children to daycare, I saw people drive by school buses that were stopped with their red lights flashing. And the first time I was irritated, the second time I was angry, and the third time I decided I had to say something. So I have a forum here. This is my bully pulpit. If a school bus is stopped and the red lights are flashing, it is illegal to pass the bus. It's illegal to pass the bus at 5 miles an hour. It's illegal to pass the bus at 25 miles an hour. It's legal to pass the bus at 50 miles an hour. It's very upsetting. It puts our children at risk. I couldn't believe it happened 3 times in a single week. I don't know if people are having trouble readjusting to the fact that school is in. So I apologize to be to show so much emotion. I was not happy about it, and so I wanted to bring it up. Please be careful. I mean, I can't stress enough how important it is. You don't know where a child is going to run from or who's going to pop out from behind that bus. So I wanted to mention that. And so that being said, we had a wonderful first day. Had an opportunity to tour the school buildings with several members of the school committee. Bob actually assembled a members of his team. We visited each school building on a torrentially downpour day. The streets were flooding, and Congress Street, you could have taken a canoe down it. But we were there. It was a great feeling, actually, especially in our elementary schools. We have new leadership teams across the board in all of our elementary schools. So we've added a new assistant principal at Memorial School to help Lisa Burns and Rachel Driscoll. They were all positive and happy. They wanted to show us the new additions and the improvements to the school building and the new floor and the first floor of one of the wings of the building. And it was a terrific tour. The feeling in Brookside with Lisa Firth at the helm of that building and Donna Hennessy as her assistant. I mean, it was a very positive feeling. Everybody was very happy to be there. The building looked terrific. It was well lit. It was bright. I know, actually, Rob Lanzetta and I, it was the first time that we'd been back in the new kindergarten wing of that building, which I'm almost ashamed to say that it's taken me 2 years to get back there. But what a beautiful building that was, and the way that the billboards were set up, it was spectacular. At the Woodland School, we had an opportunity to see Craig Consigli address his students on the first day. And he was just spectacular. I mean, it honestly looked like he had been with elementary students for 15 years. I mean, just the level of engagement, how excited he was, how the students responded to him. I mean, it was just thrilling. Nancy Angelini, of course, gave us a tour of Middle School East. She's done such a good job of cleaning out some dark corners of that building, getting a fresh coat of paint on some of the places. And I mean, the building looks as good as it's ever looked. And not that anyone else did a bad job, but the building looks as good as it's ever looked. Don Craig did show us around the Stacy School. It was wonderful to be in that building. And I have to say, poor Mike Tempesta. I came in, he was in the front lobby of this building greeting all of the students. And the room was just overflowing with students, and it was the climate of a tropical rainforest in that building. And he was sitting there, and he was smiling, and he was happy to see everyone. And it was just really nice to see everything go off without a hitch, to see the students come off of their buses. And it was a great day for me. I had a lot of fun doing it. And so I want to commend all of our administrative teams, all of our teachers, and all of our students. They made the first day of school so positive. Any other members have any comments?
We were quite lucky that Lisa Firth lent us the umbrellas that she did, because we were caught in Brookside when the torrential rains came. The pink one she lent me didn't quite match my suit, but it did keep me very dry.
It was definitely your color, though. It was definitely your color. Certainly, thank you to Lisa. We made sure we returned the umbrellas. No, it was what a fantastic day. Certainly echo all your comments, Patrick. What a great day. Unbelievable. I had my two come home from school, and one of my children, Connor, is actually at the Woodland School and had experience with Craig that day, and sat through that particular meeting actually, and boy, he couldn't get enough of talking about Mr. Consigli. So certainly a great decision of a change in leadership there, and with been known that school is definitely in good hands, as all of our schools are with all of our administrators. So.
Great. So the next item on our agenda is our invitation to speak. And is there any person who has come to address the committee today? Okay, seeing none, the next item on our agenda is the review of the superintendent of schools for the 2011-2012 school year. I wanted to preface this review with some comments, because this is a review that is unlike any that we've done before. And the reason why I say that is this review is really, it's a hybrid of two different review processes. Since 2000 or 2002, the school committee had employed a review process that was guided by a committee, by a subcommittee of the school committee that came up with what they believed the appropriate items were to review a superintendent on. And this spring, we voted on a new procedure. And one of the reasons why we voted on that new procedure, aside from the recommendation of the subcommittee, Mr. Lizette or Mr. Walsh, was we wanted to align the review process of the superintendent with the review process that the superintendent applied to his principals and the review process that his principals applied to their staff. So we're rationalizing the review process from top to bottom, and everyone will be held to the same standards, and hopefully this is going to give us a better opportunity to really understand how well we're working, from a top down or bottom up, whichever way we want to look at how the review process works. Now that being said, because it is a hybrid year, we couldn't fully employ the review process. Normally we would review the superintendent, we would present his or her new goals, and then we would conclude the meeting, and in one meeting the review would be complete. That's not going to be the case this time. The new process that we will use will give the superintendent 2 weeks to reflect on the review that he's been given, and then he will present what he believes his goals need to be for the next school year at our subsequent meeting. So at our second meeting in September, he will present what he believes his goals are based upon his self-reflection as it relates to the review that we gave him tonight. Also, we have goals that we set for the superintendent in the 2011-2012 school year that do not fit neatly into this new review process. And so this is the goals that we'll be reviewing aren't goals that line up with the new review process. They aren't dramatically different, but they don't exactly line up. And so I wanted to treat them separately because I think it's best to apply this new review process as cleanly as we can. So we're really embracing the spirit of it. And over the course of this year, we're going to have several more meetings amongst the committee to maintain this review process and to keep up with it. So this time next year, it'll all be very fluid, it'll all be very cohesive, and it'll be one process. So it was a very long preface, but I wanted to do that because this is going to be a little bit different than what we've done in the past. And so the first piece I would like to discuss are the target goals that the committee set for the superintendent for the 2011-2012 school year. There were 6 of those goals. So the first goal was related to personnel management, and the committee challenged the superintendent to document, formalize a consistent process for filling staff vacancies and/or hiring new staff under the responsibility of the central administration office. Now, to that end, the superintendent did present us a plan in October of 2011 of how he would rationalize that hiring process and how it would focus through the central office. And we did see parts of that process as he hired a new principal for the Brookside School. And I think one of the key elements that he identified was that he wanted the process to be transparent. He wanted there to be community involvement. And I think any member of the committee that witnessed that feels that he's accomplished that. But I don't want to speak for anyone, so please stop me or correct me if you think that I'm wrong. And of course, we'll have an opportunity to discuss this as the goals go forward. The second part of the personnel management goal that we challenged Bob with was to schedule routine one-on-one meetings with the principals and all those direct reports in the central office to resolve department issues. And Bob did begin applying that process, and he did start, I believe you did half the year, you had your direct reports come to the central office.
That's correct.
And then you decided, based upon the experience, that it may be better if you went and met with them in their own environment so you had an opportunity to be out in the schools. So it was a process that was changed from what the goal was, but it was changed based upon opinion and information that you'd built over the course of applying the goal. And so we felt it was appropriate to give him a complete on that process, even though it wasn't exactly to the letter of what we requested. The second goal was curriculum instruction and assessment / management, where the superintendent was challenged to take an active hands-on role in the assessment of curriculum and instruction. And we knew this was going to be a challenging goal for the superintendent. I think he'd be the first person to tell you that going into last year, that wasn't his strongest suit, and that there was going to need to be some investigation to achieve that goal. I do know that you spent a lot of time over the course of the past year visiting schools, talking with principals, and using the resources that you have available to you in the buildings to try and get a better understanding of the way curriculum is working in the school building. So this was an ongoing process. This is something that wasn't complete, and I think that the fruits of what you learned over the course of the past year, you're beginning to apply this year. There are meetings that you're holding with a lot of your curriculum, with the key people that you have in curriculum positions, and we know that those meetings are going forward. Now, this is also part of the new evaluation piece, and so we have some more specific comments from the committee, but since this was such a large goal, I wanted to give members of the committee an opportunity to speak about the curriculum goal from last year. If you want to chime in now, of course, you can always hold your comments until we get to the second part, okay? The third goal that we had set for the superintendent was MCAS performance. And so the goal was to lead a team to hone in on MCAS performance, both among identified subgroups and in the aggregate, in an effort to develop a systematic approach to dealing with AYP issues. Primarily, the superintendent indicated that he expected to be able to answer questions that have gone unanswered relative to which direct assessments are indicative of performance success and which implemented improvements are working and which ones are not working. Now, anything MCAS related, of course, is ongoing. One thing that Bob has done is that he has reached out, he's found someone who specializes in data analysis for the DESE, formerly the Department of Education, formerly something else I'm sure that other people might know that department as. But this data analyst has been working with Bob, and it's now looks like it's going to bear some very real fruit, because we're going to have additional tools to help analyze MCAS performance that aren't solely focused on AYP. I think everyone on this committee knows that there are some real challenges to analyzing MCAS performance on AYP. because we're essentially comparing grade year to grade year, and we're not staying with that same class of students, and we're not following them through and tracking their performance. We're saying, well, if students in the 8th grade this year got a B, then students in the 8th grade next year should get a B. And it can potentially be a very misleading statistic. And it's something that I know that the committee, at least I have been, frustrated with as one of the main analysis tools for MCAS. And so the new process, the new data that you're coming upon is going to give us the opportunity to track students as they move through the system, not individual students, students that are, names are kept confidential, but it's going to help us do better analysis. And so this goal is ongoing, but I think that we've made very strong progress towards completing the MCAS performance piece of that goal. The alternative high school or pathways program, where the superintendent will, his 4th goal is the alternative high school or pathways program, where the superintendent will continue to build opportunities for students that are not on the college track. And I know that this is something, actually, Mike has spoken quite a bit about this particular issue. I happen to be pretty passionate about it as well, that we have students that aren't going to be on the college track, and we need to make sure that they have an opportunity to have a gainful education and an educational experience, and the Pathways program helps that. We piloted the program last year. The program was implemented as planned in January of 2012. I actually had an opportunity to tour the Pathways program, the building, and the new computer room, well, the same computer room with new computer screens that Mr. Tempesta has had an opportunity to install over the course of the summer. And the Pathways program is already bearing fruit. It continues to move forward and it grows stronger and stronger. I think it's one of our great successes, and I think that you should be commended for it. Professional development, 5th goal. The superintendent has stated that he will directly oversee early and full release time programming to make sure that it is meaningful and productive district professional development, that you will focus on small group technology training, and to the extent that it's practically possible, you will work to reduce professional time. Reducing professional time, it ends up being a challenge because there are contractual obligations to that. But I do know that you have done a good job of embedding the professional development efforts through modified use of preparation periods, systematic implementation of common planning time. You found ways within the system and within the bounds that you have to work with to try and make that professional development time more productive. And I think that the committee, when we gave this goal to you, it was because we felt sometimes the professional time, it seemed like it was scattershot, and that it needed to be reined in a little bit. And so I think that with guidance that it has begun to become reined in, and it is getting more and more refined as we move forward. And the final goal that we had set for you, goal number 6, it was a budget-related goal. I think that over the years what had happened was the budget process had become more and more top line and less line item oriented. And so the school committee didn't have an opportunity to dig as deeply into the budget as we could. Pardon me, that was much improved this year. I think that there are some things that we could do a little bit better, but the process that we went through this year was so much more complete and so much more extensive than anything that we've done in the past that I thought it was very positive. I thought that it was a good first step towards where we wanted to be, and I would call that goal complete as well, so long as we continue to move forward. And there were some comments in your review that reflected some of those goals. So those were the goals the school committee had set for the superintendent of the 2011-2012 school year. We are confident to either mark those goals as complete or as ongoing, with the knowledge that they are ongoing because specific steps have been taken to improve upon some of the previous issues that we'd identified. And so there weren't too many comments that were concerned about the way that the superintendent was moving forward with these. So I wanted to open the floor now to any member to speak about any of these goals, or if you had any comments about the superintendent's performance, I'm sure that the committee would be happy to entertain it now. Paul?
I think you did a very good job on giving us a breakdown of these goals and what we expected from the superintendent of schools, and I think he's right on track with that as well. You know, there's really no such thing as a perfect school system or a perfect superintendent. There's always room for improvement, as we all know, no matter what job that we do. But again, I do want to commend Mr. Tremblay too for the improvement that he's made, and he's definitely on the right track, I think. And it's the school committee. I think it's nice for all of us. You know, we saw the softball team, and we saw the teacher of the year and the other teachers who were nominated for their schools. And it's nice to really recognize good things that happen in our district. And I think it's nice to recognize Mr. Tremblay for the nice things he's done and for the improvements that he's made, the hard work, the dedication. I just think, Bob, you're on the right track. Keep it up, and good luck.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bob, you and I have had this discussion in the past. I think your management skills are second to none. I think your administration skills are phenomenal. I think your involvement in the community, I don't think you could find a superintendent more involved in the community or communities in this area than you are as the superintendent, out there. I know you're out there in the evening. I know you're involved in parent skills at schools. And I just want to say that I don't want you to walk away with the feeling, because I'm glad that you've taken this proactive role with curriculum and professional development, because I think it only can make it stronger. Because I think what happens is we all know, again, I go back to private industry, when too many people get involved in something, the person that's really in charge of it or is really running it, are they really getting the information that they need on a daily basis or a weekly basis to make proper changes to put it in the right direction? I think you did a phenomenal job. We met the other day and you talked about what you've been doing over the summertime and how involved you've gotten and where you had gone to get information, people to help you. I agree with Paul. I think you're on the right track. I don't want you to take it the wrong way. I think you're doing a great job. And I'm very proud to say that you now are taking those two roles over and taking them very serious. And I know they'll move forward. So I thank you for that.
Thanks very much.
Repeat anything, certainly would echo a lot of the comments that were made. I think, Bob, one of the things that you should be commended for, which is an area that certainly was an opportunity for a self-identified area, which was curriculum, not a strength of yours. Not only have you certainly taken the steps in the direction of the committee, you've self-diagnosed, and then you actually ran towards a weakness so that it will become a strength, and so that you can add that value. That is a very impressive characteristic, and certainly something that you should be commended for. Continue to do that. You're identifying where your strengths are, and that's good, and you're continuing to leverage those as you work through your job and you work through your day-to-day. That's important. But also being self-reflective, as you're going to have this opportunity with this new process for the next 2 weeks to be reflective. Continue to be, and I would ask you to really take that time to think about, all right, so what's next? It's great, so we're going to give you some things, right? So we're going to have some things that we're going to give you some recommendations where to go next. But really, you do a nice job and a really strong job of being aggressive on trying to develop yourself and that self-development. So keep that. It will continue to serve you well.
Thanks.
Rob?
Yeah, I've definitely seen some improvement over the last year, which has been great, Bob. I give you credit for that. Having said that, I think there's still room for more, like with all of us, as Paul had said earlier. With the personnel management, and we had talked a little bit about it briefly, though we considered it completed that you had your regular meetings with the principals. I think it would be good to, you would talk maybe getting out into the schools again and meeting with them, and you talked a little bit about your fitness focus for this year, and maybe having some walking meetings with them. I think you can stand to gain a lot, and even if it's a quick meeting about other personnel issues and heading off potential conflicts or things like that, or other areas that could be consolidated. And again, you've made some great moves in some consolidations. I think there's probably still more. And if you get into the schools and are talking with the principals, and you hear those things, I'd like to hear those. And and then just another area too. We had talked a little bit about communication. And I'd like to see the committee getting a little bit more regular information from you on the status of these different projects than just on the night of the meetings. I think enables us to be better prepared to talk about discussions that might come up for vote and things like that. But again, I think you're on the right track as well, and I thank you for a good year. So,
Oh, go ahead.
I think last year was really difficult, and so to set some realistic goals, and I think part of the difficulty with the process, they were all pie in the sky goals, and I think this year is the first year that we have concrete things that are measurable goals that we can move forward, and I think you've done an excellent job addressing those goals in the beginning. But I think part of the superintendent's job, it's always a work in progress, like complete what's complete, you know, I mean, you have a new set of students every year, so I think it's difficult to manage all of that, but I think you've done it admirably. But I'm also looking forward to what comes next, because I think we've scratched the surface on some. I mean, these are very huge tasks, and I think you've laid great groundwork. So now I'm looking forward to seeing what's next, because I think it's really going to show all this hard work.
Thank you.
Yeah, Bob, I've always told you you're a well-liked guy, right? And
By some.
I personally hate annual reviews, because unfortunately it's, you know, you're waiting until the end of the year to find out what people think about you, and to me they're not all that effective. But you know, we all acknowledge that you've made a lot of improvements. We all have acknowledged that we're looking forward to working with you moving forward. The way I look at this is you're like our quarterback, right? I mean, you're the one who leads this. And we're all trying to win. And one of the things that I would like you to focus on is bringing your team closer together. Because to me, there's like a lack of camaraderie in the team. And I think you could really help the district and help out the kids if you bring that together, whether it's meeting with them more and stuff like that. But I'd just love to see that happen. You know, even when Brady wins a game, in his press announcements, he always says, yeah, we won, but there's lots of other areas we can focus on and improve on. So I would just ask you to take this, because it's real easy for people to focus on everything you did wrong, right? And I'm happy that you're being acknowledged for the things that you're doing right and improving on. So just take those things, those focus areas, and you know, just do your best in trying to make those improvements the best you can. And as a committee, I think if you need our help to make those improvements, we want you to be open with us and feel comfortable to ask us for help. So and really, that's it. I wish you the best of luck.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Of course.
Pick up on what Don said. Any of you that listened to Patrick this morning on the radio, there was a great comment you made towards the end of the interview when you said, you have to remember all of us have areas to improve in. Not that I have a long ride to work, but for the rest of the ride to work, that's all I was thinking about, and I've all been thinking about all day is, you know, you're 100% right. Every single one of us has areas that we do very well, and areas that we need to work on a daily basis. And I said to myself, that's so true, you know, and it is, you know. So.
My wife would be happy to give you the list of areas that I need. But again, thank you. Okay. So I'd like to close the door on our old evaluation process. Those were the final goals that don't align with our new evaluation tool. And I'd like to now present the review that's going to form the basis for the goals for the 2012-2013 school year. I want to just briefly, since this is a new process, and we might use some language here that people may not be familiar with, I want to let everybody know that the new evaluation that we use breaks the superintendent's performance into 4 categories: unsatisfactory, needs improvement, proficient, and exemplary. The instructions that they give us, the way that we should use these rankings, because many members of the committee thought there weren't enough grades, frankly, that 4 wasn't enough, that we found there was more gray area. And so they give us instructions and they say, the fact of the matter is most superintendents are going to rank as needs improvement or proficient in most categories, or at least ones that you want to continue with. And that's what has happened here tonight. We have also 4 broad broad stroke categories that we rate the superintendent on. Instructional leadership is the first. The second is management and operations. The third is family and community engagement. And the fourth is professional culture. On average, to begin the review, so we can have Bob set aside his tension, on average from this committee, Bob rated proficient. So throughout all the categories, there were slightly greater than 20 categories that we individually ranked the superintendent upon. And it was nice to see that the categories, there was a lot of commonality between members of the committee, between categories that were rated proficient and those that were rated needs improvement. So of the 20 or so categories, there were 5 categories that rated as needs improvement and slightly greater than 15 categories that rated as proficient. So according to the new structure, Mr. Dremble, you're doing a very proficient job with the school district. And I wanted to touch upon some of the members' comments. I think that each of the comments, I want to break down each of the standards, read some of the members' comments, so the committee can not only hear their colleagues' comments, but also so the public can hear how we rank the superintendent. So the first one I'd like to start with is Standard 1, which is instructional leadership. One of the committee members commented, for this category, the status of needs improvement, I'm sorry, I should define what that means. The instructional leadership category is composed of 5 subcategories: curriculum, instruction, assessment, which is assessment of the people who work for you, and also the people who work for you as assessment of their employees, evaluation, and data-informed decision-making. And so one member wrote, as it pertains to curriculum, the steps the superintendent has taken in the school year have demonstrated that he has taken a leadership role and transitioned from a curriculum delegator to a curriculum leader. How successful he is in this role is the subject of next year's review. For this category, the status of needs improvement is more of a reflection on the incomplete status of this goal than any ongoing deficiency. Another member wrote, progress has definitely been made in this area, and I do not think a proficient rating is far out of reach once the practices he has learned about have been put in place. And I could continue, but really every member for the most part had a very similar comment. The curriculum, we like the fact that you reached out, that you've seized this opportunity, as Scott said, run towards something that probably isn't your strong suit. And so we want to see you to continue to build on that. The next category, the second category I'd like to speak about, is management of operations. And the management of operations category is also broken up into 5 subcategories, each of which we rank the superintendent on. One is environment. The second is human resources management and development. The third is scheduling and management information systems. The fourth is law, ethics, and policies. And the fifth is fiscal systems. One committee member wrote, as it relates to policy, consistent policy application is the best way to assure parents and students that the district takes a fair and balanced approach to enforcing the Milford Public Schools Code of Conduct. The superintendent is quick to support members of his leadership team when a controversy involving policy arises. Sometimes circumstances require the superintendent recognize an error. Bob could be more adept at navigating the line that divides support from consequence, stating that perhaps there could be more opportunity to enforce rules, not only among your employees, but also among students that are in the building. Another committee member wrote, this referring to the budget process part of that goal. The budget process was definitely improved over the past. However, there are still more things that can be done to ensure that the school committee is as informed as possible in regards to the financial decisions down to the building detail. And so I think that in the budget process this year, we went from almost no line items to many, many, many line items. But I think that there is some opportunity to dig into the building budgets and look more at what the principals are doing to see if we can find budget savings there or if there's more information that we can dig into. Another committee member wrote regarding policy. It was this member's opinion that perhaps some of our policies aren't aligning with the state laws and regulations as to how an employee should be treated. So this particular member wrote, any employee, Mass General Laws, Section 71, 42D state that any employee should have 7 days written notice with the intent to suspend at the grounds upon which the suspension is to be imposed, provided, however, that the superintendent may, for good cause, require the immediate suspension of any employee. So the fact that that member felt compelled to use the language of the Mass General Laws, I think it puts an indication that either we need to do a better job of making sure that our policies are aligning with the general laws that we serve under, or that the committee needs to be better informed as to how those policies align. And so I think that that might be a topic for future. Another committee member wrote regarding the same category, that Bob has scheduled routine meetings with principals and others to address issues and improve instruction and other important needs of his staff and students. He's demonstrated improvement in budget management and preparation by providing a level-funded budget with his financial team that did not impact the quality of the education of our students. And I think that's true. I mean, we cut $600,000 from the budget this fiscal year. We affected, and I know it hurts to even say this, but we only affected two teachers, 2 teaching positions, and we had an almost negligible impact on class size, which I think that's an important goal, and it's something that you should be lauded for. The third standard is family and community engagement. And that is a subcategory that is comprised of engagement, which means actively ensuring that all families are welcome members of the classroom. The second piece of that category is sharing responsibility, which is collaborating with families with the families and community stakeholders. The third is communication, which engages in regular two-way communication, which is culturally proficient. And the third is family concerns. One member wrote, Bob is quick to take responsibility for any events, both positive and negative, that occur in our district. And he has a natural ability to put people at ease and convey the sense of concern he actually feels for members of the Milford Public School community. Another member wrote, the superintendent has always excelled in community outreach. Another member wrote, oh, I'm sorry. I lost my tabs. There it is. And finally, Mr. Tremblay should be commended for the energy and enthusiasm that he consistently brings to his position. And I think that it was, by and large, this was your strongest category for all members of the committee. The cultural outreach, the community outreach, your visibility in the community. I think it's difficult. I think it's difficult to find fault with a lot of your activities in that regard. And the fourth category that we rated the superintendent on was professional culture. And I will read what those standards are. So professional culture, it is a five-part standard. So it's commitment to high standards, where the superintendent fosters a shared commitment to high standards in teaching and learning. Cultural proficiency, which ensures the policies and practices enable staff members and students to interact effectively in a culturally diverse environment, which we know we have more of here than probably many other schools in the Commonwealth. The third part is communication, strong interpersonal and written and verbal communication skills. The fourth is continuous learning, where he nurtures a culture in which staff members reflect upon their past practices and student data. The fourth is shared vision, and the fifth is managing conflict. And so I wanted to highlight what some members wrote in regards to these. One member wrote, his commitment to high standards and cultural proficiency in a culturally diverse environment earn him high marks. He could be more proactive in seizing control of conflict when it arises. A district as large as the Milford Public Schools can benefit from a strong leader who seizes control of conflict before it has an opportunity to develop in a way that becomes distracting to the mission of the Milford Public Schools. Another member wrote, my recommended overall rating for this standard is proficient. Indicator 4D, which is indicator D, which is continuous learning, where the superintendent develops and nurtures a culture in which staff members are reflective about their practice and use student data and current research. This was rated as needs improvement, as I related to the superintendent's curriculum goal, and to consider it to still be a work in progress. Use of student data to continuously adapt practice and achieve improved results. So acknowledging that the data focus perhaps, and I think a lot of members of the committee feel, that we get sometimes very MCAS oriented when we talk about some of this data. And I think one of the hard parts is we hear arguments from both sides. So sometimes we'll hear, well, the MCAS data is good, and so everything is going great. And other times the MCAS data will be bad, and it's dismissed as, oh, well, it's only MCAS data. So I think we've heard MCAS argued on both sides, and I know it confuses me. And I imagine, I won't speak for anybody else, but I would imagine it confuses others. And so I was extremely interested in the new processes that you're developing with Patricia Meehan to look at the data in different ways, so we're actually comparing, group cohorts to group cohort as opposed to across class grades. And so, again, it would be ongoing. One member stated, Bob has excellent and effective written and verbal communication skills that assist him to be very comfortable in leading a school district with a diverse student population. And I think that's universally true. I don't know that anyone would have anything to add or subtract from that. There were a couple of members who provided general comments, and so I did want to read some of those general comments as well. They didn't pertain to any particular standard, and so that's why I'm treating them separately. One member wrote, his presence at school functions and at related community events is commendable. Bob's passion towards education can be easily seen. However, areas of improvement would include better follow-up on requests for information by the committee and to improve on dealing with conflicts in difficult situations. Another member wrote as general comments, Mr. Tremblay is certainly hardworking and well-liked individual, and he continues to gain experience. Under the category of taking initiative, I've spoken to Bob about wanting him to voice his opinion, more especially if he feels passionate about an issue or a need. I'd like to see Bob's management style become more authoritative in nature, and doing so would improve his leadership skills. Another member wrote, I believe Mr. Tremblay continued to use the obstacles and challenges that are usually encountered from time to time in the position to help him gain the experience and versatility needed to be a more effective superintendent. Meaning that, and I think that this summarizes it pretty well, which is why I wanted to read it last, that you use your experiences to build, to perfect some of the things that you do, and you're very self-reflective, and I think that you spend a lot of time analyzing what you have done so you can continue to improve your performance. And that was universal as well. That was a sentiment that came from almost everybody, that Bob cares, he pays attention, and he wants to improve, and he wants to be better at each subsequent review. So on this review cycle, this is the feedback, these packets. Each school committee member did fill one of these out. They have all been delivered to the superintendent. He has the feedback from everybody. And so reflecting upon the information that's been passed to you here, you'll be asked, of course, to develop goals, which we will discuss at our next meeting. And now I would like to open the floor to any member who has further comments on Bob's performance this year. Okay. Yes, sir.
Just a couple of comments, too. First of all, again, another good job on getting the thoughts out of us school committee members to the general public. I thought it was done very well, very understandable. It was great. Another thing, too, this is very much very important feedback that we get to also improve Mr. Tremblay's job, where it's going to be moving from the building, the administrative building, and hopefully this feedback can go right to the buildings or the schools, and the children would benefit from it as well, again and again. And I want to also, too, can't forget to thank Rob and Mike for this evaluation. It was very different, and I think it's very effective. I think it was done very well, and commend the members as well for the first time to do this. I thought they all did a commendable job. And again, thanks so much. It was a good meeting tonight.
I want to thank Rob, and I want to thank Mike. There's a lot of work that went into this, and any member of the community, if you saw the amount of material that these guys had to sift through to get to a point where they could actually present this to us in sort of a legible format. And we've met several times to get a handle on how it works, and so it's going to be a continuing process for us. But I think it's a good process, and I think it's something that's going to deliver a better performance review for the superintendent. I know, we aren't, the members of this committee, we aren't educators, and so we have to learn what we can from our educators and use our experience in the real world and our representation of the people who elected us to try and manage the schools, in the best way that we can. And so I think that this is good. I think it's guidance that we needed, and I think it's guidance that we'll put to effective use. So, and Bob, if you had some comments?
Just some final comments. Well, first, I want to say thank you to all of you, as I have in for some of you in past years. There's always room for improvement. I mean, and I'm probably one of my own harshest critics. I sat at dinner tonight with my family and reminded them of report cards and my own kids having report cards, and explained to them tonight that, you know, that Daddy would have his report card. You know, the only difference is mine gets to be on TV and on the front page of the paper. You know, that's how that goes. But it's an important lesson, I think, that my children will learn by that we all have room for improvement. You know, and I think that's leading by example, even with my own family as a father. And I won't take up much time tonight talking, because I know I'll be speaking at the next meeting about my reflection on these goals, and all of you had very good points that were made, and I appreciate the time you took to complete this and to recognize the positives there are many positives in the district, and it is very easy, as I can't remember who pointed that out, to you know, I think maybe Rob, I think maybe you said that, to pick out the areas that need improvement. Because those are the ones that really kind of stand out. And Milford's a great community, and I've been proud to serve. I mean, you know, you talk about the years of reflection. Now my 15th year in the Milford schools in some capacity as an administrator, and every year I'm still meeting new people and learning about the district and ways to improve it. So it's a challenge that I don't take lightly. It's one I take very seriously. I'm excited about the curriculum goals next year. They're going to be a challenge for me. I'm excited to surround myself with good people, and I really, you know, it's an absolute throwdown, you know, challenge for me, and I'm going to rise to that occasion. And I think it's great, Christine, the point that you made about we set the framework now. We've set this great foundation. This committee has been particularly supportive of the ideas that I've brought, some of which may be somewhat, you know, unorthodox in how we do business here, and the committee supported that. And I understand that at times I may have put the committee in difficult positions, having to defend some decisions that I've made, and I want to acknowledge that as well. I firmly agree that the communication, and I'll make that reach with each member of the committee to keep you apprised on developments. And I take for granted that people know what's inside my head, and people are in tune with what I'm thinking at any given time, and they know that's not the case. And certainly you being out there as public officials and elected officials to have to defend the posture of this school community, something this community takes very seriously, and in many respects it's what defines a community and why people want to move there in the first place. I take that very seriously as well, and that's an area for improvement that I agree, and we'll make that a priority. So just all of that said, I'm excited. There's not been a day, as my family will attest, that I don't jump out of bed to come do the job. Even there are days that are less glamorous than others. And the benefit of, you know, the visibility, and just to comment on that quickly, it's funny, my children know all the principals in the district, and my children know their way around Memorial School, and even though they go to school in Mendon Upton, and they've been very much a part of my life in the Milford schools, as I have, and it's great to have children at various ages, because I can come to a swim meet and expose my kids to something that they hadn't seen before, but at the same time be supportive of the community and of the teams here. So everything I do has become a learning opportunity for me, for my family, and a way to give back to the town. So just to close, I wanted to thank the committee for your support, even through thick and thin. I will continue to hopefully give you opportunities to not be in those positions of having to defend the district, but so that you're well informed before things may come to a head. And inevitably that will happen. There will be things that will be unpopular. But at least if you have a heads up on that first, it will help position us better as a community, and it's a point taken. So again, thank you for the opportunity. I think you laid it out, Mr. Chairman, wonderfully. The tabs, the organization of it. It was and I can speak to this instrument because I'm having to understand it, as I explained to the staff, on 3 levels. I have to understand this tool, as does the committee, so I can self-reflect and set my own goals and follow the cycle process. But at the same time, I have to a slightly different version for the principals, as it was pointed out earlier, and then at the same time explain to the staff how it's going to lay out for them by the principals. So to understand this instrument on 3 levels, and I'm glad the committee took, and I appreciate the time that you took to put this in place, because it does set the example by the top. If I'm held to this accountability, and everybody, and that flows from there. The principals are held to the same standard as are the staff, and that's going to improve this district, no question about it, for the long term. And actually for the short term, this will be a tremendous start for our district, and I'm excited to start the school year. So thank you.
Yeah, just to sum, and add some closure and continuity. I mean, it was a difficult review period last year. I hate to open the wounds. But I think that the committee sort of universally acknowledges that you were challenged and that you took steps to rise to those occasions, and you made very positive progress. And so I'm glad that we had a much more positive review
You and me
experience
both,
this year.
yeah.
And I hope it's even more positive in subsequent years, should that be the case.
Very good. Thank
The
you.
next item on our agenda is the report of the Assistant Superintendent for Business and Human Resources.
I have for the committee this evening 5 warrants. First warrant is in the amount of $5,401.97.
A motion from Scott, a second from Paul. All in favor of approval of the warrant? Opposed? Unanimous in favor, and motion carries.
Second warrant is in the amount of $913.51.
I have a motion from Rob, a second from Christine. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none opposed, unanimous, the motion carries.
The third warrant is in the amount of $892.45.
Motion from Dawn, a second from Mike. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, unanimous in favor, the motion carries.
The fourth warrant is in the amount of $292,742.45.
Motion from Paul, second from Scott. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous in favor, the motion carries.
The fifth warrant is in the amount of $278,607.88.
Motion from Christine, second from Rob. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous in favor, the motion carries.
I have a list for the committee's review. No vote is required of the latest appointments and hires from our previous meeting. I do require a vote this evening for a jury duty request from Miss Diane Pinto.
They have court during the summer? They must not.
Leaving that one alone. Motion from Dawn, second from Mike. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous in favor, motion carries.
And gifts, Mr. Hahn.
Oh, gifts. We have gifts. Tremendous. Wow, the first gift is from the Gen Youth Foundation. It's for the purpose of the cafe. It's in the amount of $5,920. That's a terrific gift. The second gift is the Hockomock Area YMCA, who actually came and presented on the first day of school for teachers. It's training for dance. Is that for you, Bob?
I'm pretty well versed.
Oh,
actually.
okay. Well, the total gift is $750. I have a motion from Rob, a second from Christine. I'm sorry. I'd like a motion from Rob to accept both of these gifts. I seem to forget to take a motion and vote on these gifts, and we normally have to vote on them at the next committee meeting, so I'm very proud of myself tonight that I'm taking a second from Christine, and I can ask for the committee's vote. All in favor, opposed, unanimous in favor, the motion carries. Thank you very much, Bob. Could you please make sure that we very generous gifts?
Absolutely.
Just terrific. We put on the agenda, and I'm not sure if we have updates, any policy, subcommittee updates, the first being the policy subcommittee. Second, no update, and the second being the security subcommittee. Did you have an update?
We actually met yesterday?
Tuesday.
And I have to say that it was a great meeting. Don and I both spoke about it afterwards. I think one of the things that impressed me the most was at the very end of the meeting, when we found the breakdown of communication. I forget what the topic was, but I think it was Craig Consigley brought up about the parents coming to the school, who had custody, who didn't have custody, and it kind of opened this whole discussion that really, in my interpretation, was a very powerful discussion of how you handle a matter like this. So I was so glad he brought it up, and the importance in that, that Dawn agrees, is that you're getting all those people together in one room and sharing their strengths, but their concerns as well, and their questions. I mean, the new technology director, some of his inputs, I was very impressed by it, very.
I was also, just to comment on that, if you noticed, and I know that you did, I gave the principals an opportunity to come themselves or send a designee, knowing that they would be allowed to, give this task out, delegate it out, and you'll notice that all the principals came. and that no principal sent a designee to the meeting, and I think that shows their commitment as well to making sure that this is reported correctly and that they have an opportunity to have their voice heard. So I think this monthly meeting with the principals and with both of you will be, and with me, of course, will be helpful for moving forward with security for the district.
Yeah, John could speak. John did a great job on the cameras.
Yeah,
He kept going
just,
back to the cameras.
Thanks, Mike. This is, this is a great meeting, and it was to get everybody together and kind of go over the new roles and responsibilities and how we were gonna make sure the schools were secure. And Bob, I know we had thanked you previously in a meeting for doing the due diligence of mapping out what those duties that needed to be covered were and your suggestions of how they would be done. So, really hats off to you on that. What we did is we asked the principals to come in with a wish list, and we'll continue to ask them to come in with a wish list and to express what their needs are. And again, it was very, very open discussion and very collaborative. One of the things that we talked about, again, like Mike is saying, is the videos. We have a system in place. It's called Access. The problem with Access is all of the cameras are proprietary, so they literally force you to purchase their cameras, which isn't the most effective way, especially with costs, to accomplish your goals. So they have a meeting in a couple of weeks to review a new system that is device agnostic. The nice part about it being device agnostic, not only can you buy the videos that you're looking for to do a specific task and save money, but you can leverage the existing video cameras that we purchase from Access. So looking forward to an update on that. But we did talk to them about prioritizing the trouble areas in the school and making sure that those are covered first, and making sure that we cover all of that. There was a kind of like a sidebar conversation, and for the policy members, there was about the bullying policy, where we talked about the cyber component of bullying. So what I'd ask is the policy subcommittee, if they could look into possibly adding a cyber component to that bullying policy and making sure.
I thought it was.
Yeah,
We missed that because it's such a hot.
I'm sure it is. One of the other things, though, to that point, though, was to have a group or find consulting or somebody to come in and educate us, because, I mean, this is kind of like the wild, wild west. And
I don't mean to interrupt,
Yep.
but I think that the cyberbullying policy that we adopted, I think, and if I'm remembering correctly, we all had sort of the same reservations about it, where it was very broad and it was a little bit vague, but we didn't know which way to go with it. So, I mean, I think you're right. I think as we move forward in time and as we look at some of the different technologies, we should readdress that.
Right.
And maybe if we can add some specificity to it, it'd be the benefit of school. Scott?
Yeah, I think it makes sense for us to probably at least go back and revisit it as a policy subcommittee, just to see if there are any tweaks, if there's any updates, either if there's any statutes out there or any other amendments that we could possibly make. I think it definitely makes sense for us to meet as a subcommittee and at least, take a look at it and review it again.
Yeah, and I think Nancy mentioned there's a contact at the DA's office that she was given. So I would think you might want to reach out to that person and just kind of get an update from her from time to time, just to make sure it's current. And that was one of the sidebar conversations. Another sidebar conversation that came out of it regarding policy was Mike's wish that during investigations, right now it's duplicated or redundant, where you have an assistant principal investigating something, then the principal have to redo the investigation for some reason. We talked to Bob about it. We asked Bob to address this with you folks, to possibly just add a little bit of flexibility into this, or to address it. So in a future meeting, perhaps we can go over that as well.
That's a policy that we have adopted, that we need to duplicate the effort?
Well, what it is, it refers to the process, the investigation process. The law allows for principal or designee.
Oh, as it pertains to bullying only?
As it pertains to bullying
Yeah,
only.
I'm familiar with that, yeah.
And so the committee adopted the
Yep.
principal only,
Mhm.
as opposed to a designee. So I think that's the flexibility piece. And I'll look at
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I recall delegating that role to the principal. I didn't realize, we didn't say that the assistant principal must first investigate it. and then the principal must investigate it again. I think that we wanted to place ultimate responsibility in the principal's hands. So if it's
Right.
being applied in that way, I don't think that that was the intent of this committee when we adopted that policy. I don't want to speak for anybody, but
Well, I think what's come down and what's made this complicated for principals is that principals need to be involved, and they must be involved in the bullying investigation at some level. We can look at the policy to see where that might better fit. The downside to that, and some of it was because at the time it was new policy language, things were being called bullying that may not have been bullying, and sorting that out, that's improved. The new evaluation tool rightly puts principals in classrooms every day. So what becomes complicated is a principal having, and take Nancy, for example, now overseeing the largest number of students across 2 campuses. You can see how it can be problematic for a principal to have to do the pure investigation from beginning to end, on top of being in classrooms and being a visible leader in the school and leading curriculum. There's just not enough time in a day or in a year to do that. So I think we have to look realistically at the amount of responsibility we're giving principals and prioritize. That's not to say the bullying part is not important, nor is their role in it. It's just at what point do they get involved in making sure that they are clearly involved in that process, but maybe not from the beginning.
well, I'm glad this meeting occurred because that's information that we need as a committee.
Yeah.
I mean, if something that we've adopted is creating difficulty because of subsequent policy adoptions as they regard assessment, we have to revisit that. So I
Right.
think that it's good that that was identified.
Yes, absolutely.
Scott, did you have?
Just, I want to obviously don't finish it. I think just in general, and this is kind of a theme that I'm starting to hear, is that, there's been some policies as a result of the security subcommittee that the principals as well as the committee are identifying that either need to be revisited or, in some cases, maybe interfering or making things more difficult for our administrators and potentially even our teachers. And without being a teacher or administrator, I candidly wouldn't know the answer to that. I guess one of my asks would be, and I don't know whether to put this in new business or policy updates or where this, but it seems like a good place to put it here. Bob, I would ask that through your conversations and interactions with the principals, that you gather feedback from the administrators as well as from, and I'm not asking you to poll every teacher in the school, okay, in the school system, but whether it's through feedback that you get from the administrators as well as from sample groups of teachers of kind of a priority list, I guess, of what are some policies that they self-identify of things that are either getting in the way of them getting their job done and improving the education and the safety and security of our students. And I think that when I think about from a policy subcommittee, I think that will help as Christine and I continue as a subcommittee to review the policies and that we have within the schools to prioritize rather than go either A to Z or in any other category.
Well, I think there's certain policies that need to be addressed every year in October. After you've used them for a year, it's, I know that we kind of did this policy committee to set up a cycle because it hadn't been reviewed in a very long time. So we were kind of playing catch up on all the policies. So now, to everyone's point, there are certain policies that we need to, on an annual basis, the beginning of the year and end of the year, revisit. Whether it's the second meeting of the year or, set those criteria and guidelines for us so that we just get it done. It gets lost because there's so many different policies in there. And, you kind of do it and you're done, and then, oh my gosh, the year's here again. But we don't practice the policies as much as our staff do.
Well, I think that one of the things we use as an example is that, let's say there's an incident, we use the high school. If there's an incident at the high school at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and Mike or Connie do the initial investigation, and then Mr. Tempesta's tied up, so he doesn't get to meet with the children until the following day. Well, we all know stories can change because information gets left out or forgotten, or, see, one investigation, yeah, the principal's involved, but the actual investigation at the time is done, by the vice principals, if we designate that, to be,
I think that speaks to the point that was made in my evaluation, too, or my review, about being more familiar in applying evenly the policies and procedures that we have in place, and they'll open up that door for us to look at that and see on the practical level, is it the right fit, and is it aligned with Mass General laws? So I'll begin to look there first.
I would hate to think that there was some person in one of our school buildings saying, well, we're doing this because the school committee makes us do it, and it doesn't make any sense. I mean, I would hate to think that happens, because we didn't get the feedback that we needed to say, this just doesn't work in practical application. It's not effective for us, and we need a change. So, and I don't think anyone here thinks that we get everything right that we vote on. If we have feedback, you know, we're gonna go ahead and revise that so it's working. And I want, you know, principals and teachers and superintendents to be empowered to tell us what's not working so we can fix it.
Yeah, it's great.
Remember?
Excellent. Sure.
The next item on our agenda is new business. Does any member have new business? Christine?
Can I just make a suggestion, as far as the security position and the changes that have been made? Is that on an upcoming agenda for school committee?
Well, I'm taking the guidance of the security subcommittee, so when they feel that they're prepared to make a recommendation on our security systems, please inform me and we'll put it on the agenda and we'll discuss it. Until then, it's gonna be subcommittee updates.
Okay, but they aren't running the school, so I think people would like to know how security is being managed while they come up with these new ideas.
So would you like a report from Bob?
Sure. I
Yeah.
think people want to know.
So we'll have I'll put a report on the next agenda, Bob. Any other member have new business? Don?
And before I go into this, I just want to let everybody know that I was alerted of something. It was a shock to me. I didn't know about it, so I thought it was important for me to notify the committee. But you know, I learned a long time ago, if you know there's a problem, come up with a solution. So at the end, I'm going to make a couple of recommendations, and I'd like to go from there. But if you could just hear me out. So over the summer, I've been bombarded with calls about, you know, coaching, lack of coaching. You know, we're missing coaches and, you know, levels on some teams, all these different things. But on several occasions, people asked me about a hockey coach being suspended during the season, which I didn't hear anything about. And I actually told them, I'm pretty sure I would have heard about it. But so on August 17th, I met with Bob, and I asked him if he knew about it. And Bob, he said, no. The only thing you could recall was a coach from several years ago being fired for an incident, but nothing in the past year. So I said, oh, great. I figured I would have heard about it. So, but I did ask him, you know, can you just check? Let's just make sure. Bob sent me a text a few hours later. Sure enough, there was a hockey coach that was suspended for anger and vulgarity issues, is what he wrote in the text that he got from Richie Picostavo. So my feeling was, all right, I made it very clear up to this point about how I feel about suspensions, and this is my understanding of reviewing the laws and the policies. My understanding is on the policy regarding coaches that if somebody misbehaves or is inappropriate behavior, Richie's to speak to them first time verbally, second time goes to the principal in writing, they warn them, third thing, it's a termination, okay? I've never seen anything on suspensions or administrative leave or all that kind of stuff. I did ask you on April 12th, my first meeting, if there was anything on administrative leave, and you said no. So it leaves me to believe, okay, the state law that I referenced, 7142D, says any suspension of an employee must come from in writing by Bob. So that aside, you know, I don't really care to dive into what happened or whatever. You know, I really don't care. But my point is, I found it pretty alarming that a coach could be suspended and Bob not know about it, and subsequently us not knowing about it. So, like you just mentioned at the end of your review, you know, your main focus would be to make sure we're well informed of things that come up ahead of time. So I was really caught off guard that something like this could happen, and in my opinion, happen again, and not go through proper process again, okay? So like I said, this is my understanding of the policies and the laws. I could be wrong, okay? But in all the research that I've done, and I feel like I've turned over every single stone on this, I can't find anything else that tells me that what is going on is okay. Everything I found is it's not okay. So I have a couple questions, and then I'm going to bring up those solutions. So, well, really the only question I have is, when you asked Richie on August 17th if the coach had been suspended, and you were informed that yes, indeed, he was suspended for 1 day, and the coach agreed to participate in the MIAA anger management course as part of that agreement or suspension, did you ask him why you weren't informed?
Well, just to comment on that, the suspension, and I actually asked him how many employees of coaches have been suspended for these kinds of things, and there have only been one, and this is the first instance of that. We've had another, resignations, terminations, that all aside, talking about suspensions. I think what we need to do is get clarification on what constitutes a suspension, and in terms of like administrative leave and these kinds of, on a practical level, of how we deal with, for example, when we, and in fact with Jerry Moody on this, and I think it may be well served to have Jerry come in for the benefit of the whole committee and speak to us on how we understand that. Because I think that, and I'll have to look back to find out more details on whether or not there was a pay withheld, for example, for this coach. A suspension from a game but with compensation is different than a personnel suspension. That's something I would handle in my office. But again, I think we need the clarity from town council on that. I don't want to go into this speaking to the Mass General Law, ed reform, and the school committee's policy without some guidance on that. So I will follow up on that, and also with Richie about the athletic procedures and compliance. So,
right. So again, I was shocked, and I thought we all deserved to know about it anyway. So, and to my solution, it's exactly, the first part of it is exactly what you're saying. What I'd like you to do is come back here in 2 weeks and explain to us what protocol is, because obviously that's a gray area. And so I'd like to know what those policies and procedures are, what is the protocol, and once we have a clear understanding of what that protocol is, I think it's really important for you to relay that message to your coaching staff, your principals, and your assistant principals, so that everybody's on the same page and this doesn't continue to happen moving forward, because none of us want to deal with this, okay? Mm-hmm. On the second recommendation is, and I'm going to say this based as a parent too, because I'm a parent, I go to games, I hear coaches swearing and yelling. I was an athlete here. I got sworn at, yelled at, okay? And me as an individual, I can honestly look at you in the face and say, I didn't have a problem when my coaches swore and yelled at me. I didn't. It just was part of it, okay, in my opinion. And I really don't have a problem if somebody swears and yells at my kid in a game to whatever. To me, it's part of life. But I understand from all the conversations that I've had with parents, especially since the last incident, hey, I heard this coach say this. I heard coach say that. My kid's complaining that this coach said this to my kid. And, unfortunately or unfortunately, we've added confusion out there as to what is going to happen to a coach if they swear. Are they going to be suspended for a game, paid, unpaid, whatever you're saying? Are they going to be fired? Are they going to be asked to go to the MIA counseling, or are they going to be asked to go to see a psychiatrist? It's a gray area, and we just need to clarify it, not just for us and for you, but for the coaches themselves. These guys are volunteering basically their time to educate our kids in athletics, which is really important in their lives. And I want to support them as much as possible too. So when you do your research and you come back, I hope you're not saying you swear you're terminated, because we're going to have a hard time finding coaches. There has to be some flexibility. And the way I read the law, it seemed like it was extremely flexible. So I hope the way my interpretation of that is comes through in this investigation. But I would like to send a message to the parents of this community that we're going to address this. And I think we should do something. And I don't know if we can take a vote on this or not, but this individual was asked to go to MIA anger management. I know that's been discussed in the past, and I know some of the coaches in the school have already gone through that just to go through it, you know, to have that experience. What I think would be beneficial for the town and our kids would be to have Richie reach out to the MIAA and ask them about the feasibility of holding an anger management clinic here for all of our coaches, so that when a parent looks at me and says, oh, they're swearing and swearing, I can say, well, you know what, we as a committee address this and we put them through anger management, and they should know how to act in front of your child. And so I don't know if we can do that or not. You know, I'm not experienced in this, but I think it would be a great message to the community, to the coaches, and to our kids that, you know, this kind of behavior, nobody wants it, and we're going to address it. And I think it would just be really beneficial for all of our sports programs to have all of our coaches participate in that anger management program, so that way we can tell the parents we've addressed it.
I think it would be interesting if Rich would try and gather some information on that.
I'll look into that. Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any other member of new business? I had one, we were harping on policy. I actually had a concern from a parent. It was a second concern regarding this topic in the past 12 months. And so I wanted, if you could please, Bob, for the benefit of the committee, forward to all of us the policies that the National Honor Society uses to choose which students will be inducted into the program, and to guide which students are excluded from the program for whatever purpose. And I'd like the committee to read over those and see if there are some loopholes perhaps in that policy or some concerns. I know we're very policy heavy today. So I haven't looked at it. I haven't looked at the National Honor. I mean, frankly, since I was in high school, I haven't known anything about that. So if you please forward that to the committee, and you know, after review, perhaps we'll put that on a future agenda. I think if there are, if there's places where we can make policies more clean, more clear, I'd like to do that. And if there are policies that are working but not being applied in an even-handed way, then I'd like to resolve that as well.
Will do.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is old business. Does any member have old business? Okay, so the next item on our agenda is actually an executive session. It is an executive session for the purpose of discussing contract negotiations with the superintendent. I will need a voice roll call of affirmation to enter executive session. Mike?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, we will be entering executive session. We will not be returning. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.